and I want us to get into the actual contentious issues or looking at the proposed amendments and unpack it for the citizenry to understand. Now, kindly note that we don't want to look at this from the prism of Jubilee or the prism of NASA, simply because laws are there to guide us. Laws are there for posterity. They're meant to be there not just for today, not just to take care of our situation here right now, but they should take care of us even tomorrow. And I'll start with you, Dr. Mukwana.
Yes.
Basically, in very simple language, unpacking these amendments. We've concentrated more on the counting of the votes, whether it is manual or it is electronic, and sometimes that feels watered down compared to the anger and animosity that it is bringing out. What is it that we're missing out in this narrative?
Thank you, Michael, and I'm very happy that you've given us those borders within which you have to operate. And for that reason, actually, today I decided to come with the acts themselves so that we are clear that what we are talking about really is what is in the act. So forgive me, and I hope our viewers forgive me if I appear like I'm in a classroom.
No, that is unnecessary sometimes.
Yeah. Now, first of all, Michael, it must be understood that this Election Amendment Act of 2017 has actually affected 6 different acts of Parliament, plus it's also premised on the the decision of the Supreme Court that was made by Justice Maraga. The acts that have been affected are the Elections Act, the Election Offences Act, the Political Parties Act, the Supreme Court Act, the Judicial Service Commission Act, and the IBC Act. Those are the 6 acts that this Election Amendment Act of 2017 has actually affected. So the public seems to be told about the manual and the electronic transmission, and there's a risk that you may leave out the rest. Now, so having said that, what are the areas that have been affected? First is the use of technology. What this law has done is that it has basically reduced the value of the use of technology. And it has actually ousted the provisions which acted as checks and balances in terms of the electronic transmission of results. That is accountability, verifiability, accuracy, and all that. What does that mean? The amendment says, in the amendment of Section 44, says that the results will be electronically and manually transmitted at the same time. That sounds good. But then the amendment goes ahead to say that in the event that there is a discrepancy between the two,
the electronic,
manual will count. Then it says that failure to publish or transmit electronically will not invalidate the results so published. So in effect, what the Constitution, what that amendment is saying, that it is the manual voting that holds sway. Because we know, and I've said many times, it is not the technology that fails many times. It is the men and women put in charge that make it fail. And when you are dealing in a country where there's no goodwill, where there are no values from either side, the technology will fail and we'll go back to the manual.
Michael, I think
that's one.
For good housekeeping,
yes,
I think we need to do some good housekeeping, Michael. Instead of you going through all those, I think let's go one by one, and so that I respond to what you are saying. I think that's fair. Okay. Is that a fair proposition?
That's fair. Thank you. Then respond to what you're saying.
Yes, exactly. Now, on that issue, remember, one of the issues that arose and was propounded by NASA in the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court agreed with them, was that there was failure of connectivity, 3G and 4G connectivity.
I'm sorry, I'm going back to NASA and Jubilee. We should just talk about the amendment.
Let me finish. That's what I'm saying.
Yes,
that there was a failure of connectivity, 3G and 4G connectivity. That was propounded in court, and the court agreed. So what happened? What happened? You are talking about the failure of transmission. What the amendment is simply saying is this. If you are unable.
Michael,
let me finish. I did not.
There was no failure.
Let me finish.
There was no failure.
Can I finish?
Please do. But
can I finish?
But there was no failure.
Can I finish?
Okay, please.
So where there is failure, for example, of a connectivity, 3G and 4G connectivity, or there is failure of transmission, then what you do is this. You do not invalidate that particular election or result from that area merely because there has been failure of technology or of transmission or of connectivity. What you do is this. So long as you have the manual, and the manual, what is the manual that we are talking about? So long as we have the manual bit of it, then those elections are good. You know why we are saying that, and why I totally agree with that proposal. Are you trying to say that Saburu man did not vote merely because there was lack of transmission, or there was deliberate lack of transmission? Are you trying to say that he did not vote?
Michael,
so they are trying to resolve an issue that arose in court.
Okay.
Let me ask this question, Mike. We lose it. Believe me, Alex is dragging us into a Jubilee. The merits. Just a moment.
I'm not.
You have.
Not.
You are driving us to the merits of Jubilee position and NASA position. I don't want to just talk about the two. The question as a lawyer that you should be asking, and let's help Mike because he's not a lawyer. What is the effect of that amendment? Is it to give supremacy to manual voting, or is it to give to electronic voting?
The issue is not voting. No. The issue is not voting. In fact, what you have read is not about voting. It is about transmission. There's a difference.
All right.
Voting is manual. It's always manual.
As the layman here, help me understand, Dr. Mukhwana, what is wrong if my voting is manual, right? Yes. So if I go to the ballot, like we did on the 8th, I will tick a box, I will put it in a box, and those boxes will be counted, Form 34A, Form 34B, which will be electronically transmitted to the main tallying center. That's how it's supposed to work.
The constituency.
So what I want to understand is, at the point where, for instance, there is manipulation of the electronic system, or there is discrepancy
or failure,
or whatever of the electronic system. What is wrong with us going back to that vote that I, as a citizen, cast into the box, and then we recount it manually in front of everybody? That's what I want to understand.
Thank you. In fact, now you're putting it into context. Technically, and as the law and technology was put in place, the idea was that one should checkmate the other. And that's what you're saying.
Yes.
That in the event that there is a problem at the transmission level, can you go back and verify?
Correct.
It doesn't say that the transmission component will not count. You understand? Because, remember, we are talking about transmission failing. It didn't fail. We can talk about that again. But what happens is this. What if manual fails?
How does manual fail?
Thank you.
Give us an example.
Thank you. If you have lived in this country long enough, you know that manual has failed. How has it failed? The ballot is cast, the presiding officer counts, writes the results, and then carries these results to take them to the constituency tallying level. Between the polling center and the constituency tallying center, there is human interference. People have actually attacked the presiding officers, taken that paper, changed it, and forced him to take that one. It has happened. During the time of the...
That would not appear in court.
Wait, Alex, no, Alex, I don't want us to project and look necessarily at what happened. I want us to look at the amendment law and what it implies.
Let's confine ourselves to the amendment.
What is the risk of manual? What is the risk of electronic transmission? Both can fail. And the reason why we are looking at electronic as being able to fail is because technology can fail. What can fail in manual is the human character. And this is the mischief that electronic component was curing. If you have lived in this country long enough, you know that the manual voting has been misused before. If you finish your balloting, the results are recorded. Who carries these results?
A human being.
A human being carries these results from polling center to the constituency.
But allow me to pose you. And the question is, that same human being is the one operating the electronic system. We are basically going round in circles to a point where now we will not find a solution because...
The solution is this, and that's why I was coming to, that both electronic transmission and the manual transmission are important to checkmate each other. And therefore, we shouldn't remove one in place of the other.
No,
because both
I'll
can fail.
correct you. No, you can't get away with that.
Why not?
The amendment did not in any way, first, water down the importance of electronic transmission. Secondly, the amendment did not remove the requirement for electronic transmission. What the amendment has done, Michael? No. Can I finish?
The act is here.
Can I finish? Yes, what I'm saying. I'm telling you what the amendment says.
Yes,
it means where the transmission, the electronic transmission fails, first, you do not invalidate that voting. Secondly, where the two conflict transmission, where there's failure, then you go manual. You go back to manual, which is what you have said. Should that vote of yours not count merely because there was lack of connectivity, 3G or 4G connectivity, or there was lack of the actual transmission, electronic transmission that is scanning? You put the Form 34A on the tablet.
Okay.
Yes. So,
let's hear the actual act and interpretation, because the other thing that we have a problem with here is interpretation. Right now, as we stand, we have... But anyway, that will take us back to now.
The other issue,
just a moment.
Read the act.
You can go to the...
the other issue, there's another issue. So because we seem to be dwelling on one particular issue, there are very many aspects of this amendment. The other amendment that has been proposed, and which I find very important, when the returning officer at the constituency level refuses or neglects or in any way fails to sign Form 34B as has been generated from 34As, which are from the polling stations. What do we do with that? Remember also that issue was brought up, it was propounded in during the case at the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court agreed with NASA. So what have these people who are proposing this amendment done? They are trying to cure that problem. That in the event, first they make it mandatory for a returning officer and the PO to sign Form 34B and Form 34A respectively. They must sign. Secondly, if they do not sign, then there is the penal aspect. Sentence of up to 5, maximum of 5 years. That to me is very important. You know why? It takes care of first what the NASA was complaining that there were some forms that were brought to the center, to the National Card Center, that had not been signed. Yes, it takes care of that. Secondly, it takes care of the judgment itself. The judgment also confirmed that was the case. So, of course, the minority judgment, Justice Joki said, no, I was able to go through those forms, they were actually signed. But that is a story for another day. So for me, it cures that problem. And then finally, Michael, the other important thing is this. The amendments have said clearly, even if you as RO or as PPO do not sign Form 34B and Form 34A respectively, that does not invalidate that election. And as you said, you cast your vote. Does that mean that because the officer... So what it says...
Unfortunately, we are running out of time, so we need to, bring it together. And package it so as we come to an end. But, Dr. Mukwana, a lot has been said.
Yes. Look, allow me to just read a draft of what this is.
Very quickly.
Section 39, as amended, okay, says this. Transmit electronically, but manually. Manual one carries the day. 2, there shall be no need for prescribed format. You agree? That there shall be no need for a prescribed format of the form. Meaning, the security features that were the issue will not be an issue. So the form can be transmitted in whatever form. And if there is a question as to the type or format, that should not be an issue. Meaning, that leaves open for any official to bring in any other form. So there's no prescribed form this time. 3.
No, you have not. You have left out what that particular... There is that bit, the last bit, which says that so long as there was no intention to mislead...
Precisely.
Which is...
How do you establish intention?
And I'll tell you why that bit is very important.
How do you establish intention?
No, you have left out that bit, which is the most important key.
I'm still on it. I had sought permission to read.
Okay, allow
yes,
you to read.
continue.
Yes, finish. Yes,
okay.
you respond.
Yeah.
And we need to wind up.
Yes,
we're going to land this
no so, there is now no requirement that the results must be in any prescribed format. What is the mischief there? How do you ensure that from the 40,883, the forms are actually as originated from the polling centers? That is the challenge of verifiability. That's the challenge of accuracy. Without technology. 3, where there's a failure to electronically transmit, they're saying where there is a failure, not the reasons, but where there's a failure, that will not necessarily invalidate the election. Meaning that the prime anchor is the manual. So the failure to submit electronically will not invalidate. Next one, there shall be published on a public portal, live transmission. But that is only for the purposes of information. And it shall not count towards the declaration. Again, what that does mean, that the issue of electronic transmission is basically paperwork. Then, no provisional results shall be announced before Form 34A and 34 received. That section is wonderful, because that is exactly what the court said, that how could you announce results before 34A and B. So this last bit is a wonderful one. But these other ones leave it open to manipulation. That is what I'm saying.
No, continue.
He's done. Yeah. And what I'll want you to do, Alex, is as we wind up, because we are out of time, is let us know from a legal perspective, and this is not NASA or Jubilee.
It's okay.
From a legal perspective, is this bill helping us for posterity, or is it just dealing with the presidential election that we're looking forward to in the next 25 days? Is it something that is helping this country in terms of long term?
First, we had no option. This country had no option. And I agree with you, it's not a matter of NASA or Jubilee. Remember, if you look at these amendments, their own nature, they seem to be solving problems that arose during the election petition at the Supreme Court. Meaning, even these ones should even have been originated from NASA in Parliament, not even Jubilee, because they are the ones who are complaining. Meaning, they should be, everyone should be comfortable with them, they should be happy. They will take care of the problems that we have, that arose during the transmission, the problem that arose during the non-signing of forms. All these have been taken care of. In fact, the one that I like most, Michael, is this. That penal solution to the problem of returning officers and presiding officers not signing and transmitting forms, subjecting them to jail term of 5 years, of not more than 5 years. That was matters.
So you've not answered my question. Very simply, is this for posterity?
Yes, it is for posterity.
According to your, it is for posterity.
Of course.
As you wind up, is it for posterity?
For lack of time, Michael, Section 6, Section 7, Section 8 that deal with the voter identification, registration, using the biometric has been deleted. We didn't have time for this, really, but has been deleted. The effect of that is that there is no mandatory requirement that voters be identified electronically, that the election be conducted electronically. Section 6, Section 7, Section 8, these have been deleted. In brief, because we don't have time, and I really hope we have another time.
No, we definitely will.
Yeah, we really hope that, because we have not done justice to the viewers. There is, the amendments are far-reaching. We have not. If you want to know whether these laws are for posterity or for today, look at the fact of their application. The principal cardinal rule in legislation is that laws should never be legislated to apply retrospectively. If theft was not an offense yesterday, and we enact a law criminalizing theft, all acts of theft committed before today will not be affected. Those affected will be the ones which are coming in future. Forward. So that you do not legislate with a particular intention of taking advantage over the other. We have been told that this legislation is to apply to this election. The question that you have to ask is that when the Supreme Court ordered fresh elections, was it to be conducted under the same elections, or was it to be conducted under fresh elections? If the intention is to use these laws for these elections, then they actually risk being challenged in court, because that violates the policy of retrospective legislation. Two, when we finally sit back and look at this legislation, what we tried to cure from 1992, during Moi's time, was that the system should be able to be as foolproof as possible. We should have both systems checkmating each other. No one should be removed and give one the supreme. If we do that, we go back to where we were in 1992. Finally, when you change elections with a view of scoring a political point, it cannot be for posterity, because tomorrow you'll be on the other side. And these laws are not meant to fix me or you. These laws are meant to help us in future.
In future.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, we'll have to wind up right there, not because we have exhausted what needed to be talked about, but because of time. And like they say, time waits for no man.
Yeah.
Dr. Alutalala Mokwana, thank you very much for joining us this morning. We also have Alex Gatundu, who is the Vice Chair of the African Bar Association Kenya chapter. It is now 17 minutes to 10, and we're taking a short break. When we come back, we'll be looking at some stories that have been making headlines internationally. Do stay with us right here on Weekend Express.